The kangaroo usually targets a big fish as its host, drinking blood from its gills. But occasionally they make mistakes. This has resulted in one of the most infamous legends ever to emerge from the Amazon. A man urinating in the river who has a fish swim up his penis. Yet for one gentleman, this urban myth became reality. Luckily, he was able to make it to this surgery in Manaus, where he was treated by Dr. Anwar Samad.
4 dias. Então,
he'd actually had this fish inside him for 4 days, and the reason there was such a delay was because he actually lived a long way, in the interior, away from the city.
Bem dilatado, porque peixe dentro não conseguia urinar.
He had a very, very swollen bladder. He was bleeding, general fever, swollen testicles, and generally in a very bad way.
E o peixe caminhou lá dentro, como se tivesse caminhado com as barbatanas, caminhou lá dentro.
The fish wasn't visible. It's got these little sort of spines on the gill flaps, so it was almost like working its way in like that. It would have swum as far as the sphincter, at which point the fish was apparently trying to sort of, gnaw its way out, was actually, instead of just swimming up the urethra, was actually starting to gnaw. So this guy obviously was in a lot of pain.
Quando nós passamos o endoscópio, esse aparelho entra direto no pênis, passamos o endoscópio, percebemos 12 centímetros.
12 centímetros. What was done first of all was that the endoscope was put in the end of his penis into the urethra.
The endoscope was equipped with a camera, and this is the actual footage from that operation.
They were expecting to find a little fish. What they found instead was something that went, almost from the entrance of the urethra all the way back to the sphincter. They're talking about something 5 or 6 inches. So, not exactly a little fish, quite a substantial animal.
Kangaroo locate their hosts by following the trail of dilute urea that fish excrete from their gills. This could explain this kangaroo's mistake. Having heard this gruesome tale, I decide to see if I can track down any more details. I manage not only to find the victim, but I take him back to the actual scene of the assault on his manhood, to relive the events that have haunted him since that day.
Essa aqui tá meio alagada.
Ah, tô vendo. Sem motor? Okay, so it's 11 years ago. It's in this very spot. Silvio and some friends were in the water down there.
Ele me deu uma dose de bebida, eu subi, quando eu ia descendo, eu vontade de urinar, só que aí eu tava...
And after a little period of time, Silvio, felt the need to urinate, as happens. He knew the story about the kangaroo, so he actually sort of took himself partially out of the water.
Foi na hora que eu fui urinar, quando eu me espantei e o bicho estava entrando.
While he was relieving himself, suddenly he said, he just had a bit of a shock. And, the first thing he knew was that the fish was already, inside. Only, just the end of its tail was out. Tried to grab hold of it, but it's a very smooth fish, a bit like a bar of soap. No good, no success pulling it out, so basically just ran up onto the bank to try and get some help.
Aqui aí não deu jeito, tive que ir lá para Manaus para ver se conseguia tirar.
The hospital facilities here aren't brilliant. Sylvia had to go to Manaus, which is quite a long journey away. It's several hours by road, and went to a hospital there, and basically people just didn't believe him. He was in this situation of people just not believing that this was true. So was passed from one hospital to another, eventually came to one place where, thankfully the doctor did believe the story and actually, decided to do a proper investigation and see if he could help. This is almost exactly what Silvio described, something going in one direction and just not wanting to come into reverse at all. Look at that, I can actually feel its spines digging in when it does that. It was actually walking using its head. Now imagine that in an orifice. This fish is just leaking blood. It's not this fish's blood, it's something it's been feeding on. And it is just an absolute nightmare, a real sort of vampire fish, this thing.
A fish like this may have entered Silvio in search of a blood meal, but little did it know that its mistake would result in an unprecedented medical procedure lasting 2 hours.
Também não se conhece nada a respeito de ataque desse peixe e do que deve ser feito. Concorda?
The first thought was to, a bit like a hook that's got a barb on it, actually pulling it back the way it went in is not always a good idea. He was thinking of actually sort of coming in from the side, coming in from the perineum, and actually trying to sort of pull the fish out head first. But he thought that because, you know, it had been such a long time in there, they would actually, and also the other fish were starting to rot a bit, maybe try and pull it out with the endoscope, you know, out tail first, the way that it went in. The tail of the fish was about here, about an inch in, and so the head of it would have been somewhere like here. And then what happened was that the pincers were gradually, you know, manipulated out of the hole here. There we go. Grabbed hold of the fish just in front of the tail, and then using the camera, and then the whole apparatus just gradually, very delicately moved out.
Se aquela força é o suficiente para o peixe vir, sem cortar, sem partir, sem danificar.
Apparently it was necessary to pull with a certain amount of force, but feeling that it's not doing any damage. Unfortunately, you know, it did come out eventually.
The fish was sent to the National Institute of Amazonian Research to be formally identified, thus confirming, after centuries of speculation, that a fish has entered a human in the most intimate of places.
This is a somewhat momentous and possibly delicate occasion. I'm bringing Silvio back to meet his fish. This one. Silvio, esse aqui. But this is actually the first time since he had the surgery that Silvio has seen this fish, this very fish. Quer pegar assim?
Não.
That's it. I just asked Silvio if he would like to handle it, and very definite no. I think once was enough. So maybe if I leave it in my hand, but I'm quite struck by how large it is. É grande, né? Não é peixinho, mas é
grande. Eu pensei que era menor, eu só via de dentro desse vidro quando o doutor já me mostrou quando eu tava.
You know, he's looking at it now, thinking, you know, I didn't realise it was that big. I thought it was smaller. It really does sort of beg a belief that something of that size could burrow into you.
Try and catch me!
On a warm, humid spring day, a 9-year-old schoolgirl, Elizabeth Granger, and her 13-year-old brother, George, are playing on the shoreline of the lake. Elizabeth, only a few feet away from her brother, dangles her feet in the water.
Always win, you always do.
Suddenly, something grabs hold of her leg. Dr. Robert B. Payne has worked as a physician for almost 40 years. But he has never seen wounds like this.
What have we here? My goodness.
The press report George's claim that what attacked his sister was 7 feet long, and that he believed it to be a garfish. In his medical report, Dr. Payne describes the wounds as being like coarse needles inserted in a board. A wave of paranoia soon follows, and the alligator gar is held accountable for many similar attacks. Although this was a well-documented event, the identity of the attacker rested entirely on the testimony of a 13-year-old boy. But was an alligator gar really the culprit? Or, with its threatening prehistoric appearance, was it just an obvious scapegoat? As we head back to the village, my guide tells me about one river monster in particular that they fear. It's called the Cobra Grande, the big snake. I've heard of this monster before, and I thought it was a mythical, oversized anaconda. But I am told that several people here have actually seen it, and that a nearby village had to totally relocate because they were so terrified of the big snake.
Senhor,
Posso entrar?
pode entrar. Eu cheguei a ver ela. Eu vi ela em terra.
In terra. Manuel here has actually seen a Cobra Grande, and it was actually on land, so I'm very keen to get the details of this. E como foi que aconteceu?
Ah, sim, nós vinha com meu avô lá debaixo da ponta da onça subindo, né?
This sounds more than just a big anaconda. This was a huge animal. I mean, immense size, great big head, and this thing was black, red, and yellow, and it was missing its tail apparently, which is an odd detail. But he obviously had a very good look at it. The snake was just lying there, looking out over the water. These eyes like searchlights, and apparently its head just covered in bees, just black with bees, but the animal just not bothered at all. So it does sound as if it's more than just an ordinary anaconda. It is something very different. I mean, almost like a mythical beast, except for the fact that for him, it's no myth, it is a real animal. Sounds far-fetched, but he actually saw this huge animal just down the bank from here.
He tells me that a few other people in the village saw the Cobra Grande very recently. This is an opportunity not to be missed.
I'm on my way up a narrow, winding creek in the middle of flooded forest, except at the moment the water is very, very low. And I'm on my way to see the hole where a Cobra Grande is supposed to live. This is the giant snake, which I thought was just purely a creature of myth, but they said, no, we are taking you to a place where people say there is one actually there now.
I was initially sceptical, but their insistence is infectious.
I mean, it really is quite a spooky place, this, all these sort of skeletal dead trees poking out of the water. And, if anywhere is going to be the home of a Cobra Grande, I mean, this place certainly does have that kind of feel to it. We're here.
With the Amazon basin covering some 2.7 million square miles, there are without any doubt new species waiting to be discovered. And who knows how big some of these animals might be.
They said that this line here is a track. If this actually is the track of a snake, it is a big, heavy animal. This is a seriously large track that it's actually made in the ground here.
Anacondas can reach around 30 feet. If that isn't a big snake, I don't know what is. But the locals say Cobra Grande is far bigger than an anaconda.
Yes? That does actually look like the home of something. Judging by the size of the holes there, that could have been something pretty large. So here we've got a bit of shed snakeskin, and it goes all the way from what I can see. It starts here, there's some there. There's quite a lot here. And then just a little bit more here. Let's just pick a bit up. You can actually see the individual scales. At some point, quite a large snake lay here and shed its skin. Donna Socorro was going to collect turtle eggs and just saw this thing ahead of her. It looked like a tarpaulin, a big lump of something, and then the man who she was with sort of realised that it was a snake, and actually with a shotgun put 3 shots into it, and apparently the thing didn't move at all. It actually then went down the hole that we found earlier and just went underground, and then there was just this hissing sound apparently of it breathing. I mean, it sounds hard to believe, but they came to where the animal was, and the 3 lumps of lead were on the ground, hadn't even gone in the body. Even though it sounds quite an ugly beast, somewhat frustrated that it doesn't seem to be here today, although there are very, very definite signs that something large is around these parts.
If I'm to fish for a giant arapaima, then I will be entering the home of monsters. Maybe I won't meet the cobra grande on this trip, but I'm finally grasping how myth and reality are intertwined for these people. I'm a specialist in hunting down giant freshwater animals. Using a combination of logic, local intelligence and intuition, I've faced shoals of piranha in South America and man-eating catfish in Asia. Sharks, though, are a different target altogether. These creatures are the stuff of legend. Jaws, the iconic 70s story, describes ferocious man-eaters with a taste for human flesh. But the report of a shark operating in an inland lake is truly terrifying. To investigate, I'm heading to Australia. Midsummer on a brackish lake. The temperature over 80 degrees. A 23-year-old postdoctorate student, Bo Martin, and his friend David are planning a cooling swim in Miami Lake.
I'm gonna flog you. Promise you.
I'm gonna absolutely slay you.
No, you put some money where it is.
50 bucks?
50 bucks? 50 bucks, mate.
Done.
Give me this.
Yeah, you need it. You need that for the race, yeah.
Do it. Okay, going down.
I don't know why
you beat you. Oh, man. Hey, hands, keys. Need keys.
Real practical, mate.
Go, got the keys. Shirts off, let's drag. We're going.
They begin a swimming race across the 500-yard wide lake. Dave takes the lead and reaches the safety of the shore. Bo, however, is still out on the lake. In trying to catch up, he strays into deeper water. In an instant, he disappears. Dave returns to the water, but there is no sign of his friend. Bo's sudden disappearance had all the hallmarks of a shark attack. But few could imagine this apparently safe backwater to be a hunting ground for sharks. The shortest route from the sea to the lake where Bo Martin was attacked is over 10 miles long.
I want to have a look at this up here because there are a number of these sluices throughout the canal system, and people have told me that these would actually be a barrier to any large fish.
They're here to ensure that the level of the lakes remains high and therefore looks attractive to residents. It's hard to tell much at all from this direction, the way a fish would come. I need to see this from the other side.
Right, this gate is closed, and this would be, I think, a very secure barrier. Very different picture here. This gate is open, and I think it's clear anything, that big or even more could just go straight through here. What I find really unsettling is that the lake where Bo Martin was attacked was just around that corner. And what that means is that the killer would have come through these gates.
There are no safeguards anywhere to prevent a shark from making this area its killing ground. On Miami Lake itself, the day after Bo Martin's disappearance, a search begins, led by Bo's father. Exhaustively, he combs the perimeter of the lake. For 2 days, there is no sign of Bo. On the morning of the third day, after the police have given up the hunt, he begins to search from his kayak. He happens upon the body of his son, part in and part out of the water. The only reason his body had surfaced, the gases resulting from decomposition, causing his body to inflate. The autopsy revealed that Bo had been struck 3 times by a bull shark. One devastating bite on his left thigh, proving fatal. This predator had slipped with ease from the sea into the brackish water of Miami Lake. Once inside, it had been free to go about its business unseen, until the killing of Bo Martin revealed its deadly presence. 80 miles inland from the ocean, trainer Alan Treadwell is taking his finest trotting horse, Glenburn's Arm, for exercise in the river.
I'd swum there for 8-9 years, never a problem. It's a very popular picnic spot.
This part of the river is a secluded oasis, popular with families as a swimming hole. But on this day, Treadwell has the river to himself for his training program. He wants to build up his horse's muscle strength without straining its legs. Glenburn's Arm, a 6-year-old gelding weighing 1,000 pounds, has won 7 times over a 3-year career. With the help of his stable hand, Alice Holden, Treadwell ties a 1/2-inch rope to the horse's halter. With it, he can control the horse from the bridge. As far as Treadwell can see, from 20 feet up on the bridge, everything appears to be going to plan.
The horse was swimming, I had control of the horse.
But suddenly, something startles it.
The horse looks like it's going to drown. Then all of a sudden, I saw something hanging off the back of him. As the horse rolled over, the colour lightened and it went to a white underneath, whatever it was.
Whatever this creature is, it has the force to hold on to and the power to submerge a 1,000-pound horse.
The horse is in trouble. We had a problem. I've got to get this horse out of there. Whatever's wrong, if I can get him out of the water, I can control it. He won't drown.
Is it possible the same species which attacked both Bo Martin and Peter Edmonds is now operating 80 miles inland? The only reason it hadn't been killed is because of the tether around its neck.
If we hadn't have got him out, I don't believe he would have survived.
Trainer Alan Treadwell was able to pull his horse to safety. If the victim had been a human, a fifth of the size of this horse, there would be no hope of surviving the attack. The horse, Glenburn's Arm, was treated by a veterinary surgeon who photographed the wound. I want to meet up with Alan Treadwell to find out if this attack can be attributed to a bull shark.
Hello, Alan.
G'day, how are you?
All right, thanks. This is the boy, is he?
Yeah, this is him.
This is... Can I say hello?
Say hello.
Hey. So he's not just an ordinary horse, is he? He's a bit of an athlete.
He's a bit of an athlete, yeah, he has been.
Or used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we see the wound at all? Can you show me where it was?
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah.
It's healed pretty well.
Yeah.
That's where it was on the flat there.
Right. So looking at him now, I mean,
he looks fine.
He looks fine. But I mean, did he recover fully or?
No, I don't think so. Actually, he swells up in the fetlock after a hard run.
Right.
Which virtually makes it impossible to race him.
So in effect, this actually finished his career.
It has done, yes. It still seems to be a bit awkward in that one back leg. I don't know what happened to it. It's impossible to say.
So, you know, possibly there's some sort of, you know, deep muscle damage, some...
Yeah, it could be.
Something
That's exactly right, yeah.
I've been coming to the Amazon for 15 years, and a tale I've heard many times is that of a fisherman going missing. Far from home on a remote tributary of the Amazon, something happens. People tell of a creature leaping out of the water, knocking the fisherman from his canoe. But with no eyewitnesses, the list of suspects is speculative at best. Could there really be a monster in the Amazon capable of doing this? And if so, what kind of beast could it be? This story of a canoe found floating, nobody in it, fisherman disappeared. The automatic assumption from everybody was that it was a caiman or an anaconda. Those are the obvious candidates. But I've been doing a bit of thinking, and I think another animal might have been involved. And what I think it might have been is one of these. Now, I mean, this is a real armour coat, this, and it looks as if it's a snake or some other reptile. But believe it or not, this is actually a fish, and this is a big fish. This is the skin of an arapaima fish. And if its scales make you think of a dinosaur, that's because the arapaima is indeed a dinosaur of sorts. It has swum in these waters virtually unchanged since the Cretaceous period. That is just a single scale from this animal. I mean, you know, that is pretty impressive. But they go a lot bigger than that. And the reason I know that is that. Now, whatever that came off, that would have been a serious river monster. Arapaima have been caught measuring up to 10 foot long, making them the largest freshwater fish in the world's largest river. But in recent years, they have been relentlessly overfished, and today they are so rare, it is forbidden to catch them in most areas. However, they are potentially found throughout the countless thousand miles of river that make up the Amazon basin. And I believe arapaima may be responsible for killing some of those missing people. All over Brazil, dams like this have created artificial lakes, which are very popular places to come for a swim, particularly in the heat of the dry season. Put that together with a concentrated population of piranhas, and you're asking for trouble. Humans being attacked by man-eating fish is the stuff of nightmares, and it has fueled an industry of fear, which Hollywood has happily embraced. If you're on a beach by the ocean, sharks can be a very real concern. It's not uncommon to enter the water with a fear of what might lurk beneath. But deep inland, over 1,000 miles from the sea, most people would not expect to be a victim. Yet on the weekend of December the 21st, 2005, at the end of the dry season, this is exactly what happened. On a beach exposed by the seasonal low water, 8 people were attacked. And the perpetrators of these attacks were piranhas. In a period of 7 months, 190 people were bitten by piranhas. Unlike the bus crash, these weren't frenzied attacks which left the corpses half-eaten. These were individual bites. No one was trapped, injured or bleeding, yet the piranhas were definitely attacking live people. Obviously something strange had occurred here.
Piranha tend to build their nests in very shallow areas because they need to have vegetation, not only for the eggs to stick to, but also for the young fry to retreat when they're first hatching. So in cases where people have been bitten, I mean, I suppose somebody wading in shallow water and happens to tread onto the nest of a piranha, where there's a big male defending its eggs, is definitely going to be susceptible to getting a bite.
The beach attacks occurred when there were most people in the water on the hottest days at the end of the dry season. It is at this point, usually just after the first rains, when piranhas breed. All they were doing was simply what most living creatures do, protecting their young. So these multiple piranha attacks actually reveal a caring animal that in this instance has no intention to kill.
As children do, from one side of the house to the other, and just fell in the water the other side. And he said literally, you know, they heard a noise, they got there, it was already too late.